Not a single waiter would go near the table where billionaire Claire Whitmore sat. The restaurant had gone silent. The manager kept shaking his head. The servers avoided her gaze like she was a disaster waiting to happen. Claire was used to it. The fear, the submission, the fakeness. But right then, a man in a worn uniform, hands still smelling of dish soap, stepped out from the back. He did not ask permission. He did not hesitate. He just set the menu down on her table and said something that made the entire restaurant go dead quiet. What right did a single father have to do what no one else in this place dared? The restaurant was the kind of place where silence cost more than noise. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings too high to touch, and the carpet swallowed footsteps like secrets. White tablecloths were ironed flat enough to reflect light. Every fork had weight. Every glass had a name. This was where power came to eat, and everyone knew it. Claire Whitmore walked in at 7 p.m. on a Thursday. She wore black because she always wore black. Her heels struck the marble floor in a rhythm that made heads turn, then quickly turn away. The hostess saw her first and went pale. She whispered something to the manager, a thin man named Gerald with silver hair and a tie that looked like it was choking him. Gerald's face tightened. He whispered back. The hostess nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. Claire did not wait to be seated. She chose a table by the window, away from the others, and sat down. She did not look at the menu. She did not look at anyone. She simply waited, her hands folded on the table, her expression unreadable. Around her, the restaurant continued its delicate dance of wealth and performance, but something had shifted. The air had gone cold. Gerald stood near the bar, watching her. He motioned to one of the servers, a young woman named Jessica with blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Jessica shook her head. Gerald motioned again, more urgently this time. Jessica backed away, her eyes wide. Another server, an older man in his 50s, pretended not to see. A third turned and walked toward the kitchen without a word. Gerald's jaw tightened. He glanced toward Claire, then looked away. Claire knew what was happening. She had seen it before. The whispers, the avoidance, the invisible wall that rose around her wherever she went. It was not new. It was almost comfortable. She had built an empire from nothing, clawed her way up from waiting tables herself to owning boardrooms where men twice her age stumbled over their own lies. She had learned that fear was useful, respect was optional, but being ignored was different. Being ignored was an insult disguised as politeness. She sat there for 10 minutes. No one came. The table beside her received their appetizers. The couple near the window laughed over wine. A waiter refilled water glasses at every other table, moving in smooth circles, always stopping just short of hers. Claire did not move. She did not call out. She simply sat, watching the theater unfold, waiting for someone to break. In the back of the restaurant, past the swinging doors that separated the dining room from the chaos of the kitchen, Ryan Cole stood at the industrial sink, his hands submerged in soapy water. He scrubbed a pan that had been burned black on the bottom, the steel wool rough against his palms. The water was too hot, but he did not pull his hands away. He had learned a long time ago that discomfort was just part of the job. His shift was supposed to end at 8, but the dishwasher had called in sick, so he stayed. He always stayed. Ryan was 34 years old, though he looked older. His face was lean, his jaw shadowed with stubble. He did not have time to shave. His uniform was faded, the name tag crooked, the fabric soft from too many washes. He did not talk much. He did his work, collected his paycheck, and went home to his son. That was the deal he had made with himself when his wife left 3 years ago. Keep your head down. Do not make trouble. Survive. But that morning, before his shift, he had made a different promise. Ethan had been sitting at the kitchen table, eating cereal in his school uniform. He was 8 years old, small for his age, with brown hair that stuck up no matter how much Ryan tried to flatten it. He had asked a question that should have been simple, but was not. Ryan had been pouring coffee, not really listening, when Ethan spoke again. His voice was quieter this time, almost defeated. Ryan turned off the faucet and looked at his son. Ethan was staring down at his bowl, his spoon moving slowly through the milk. Ryan set the coffee pot down and walked over. He knelt beside the table, bringing himself level with his son. Ethan would not look at him. Ryan reached out and gently turned the boy's face toward his own. Ethan's eyes were wet, but he was trying not to cry. Ryan felt something crack inside his chest. He thought about all the times he had swallowed his pride, ignored slights, let things go, because it was easier. He thought about all the times he had told himself it did not matter. But looking at his son now, he realized it did. Ryan spoke carefully, his voice low but firm. He told Ethan that no one had the right to make him invisible. He told him that if someone treated him like he did not matter, it was not because he did not matter. It was because they were too afraid to see him. And then he made a promise. He said that if he ever found himself in a situation like that, he would not stay silent. He would stand up, not because it was easy, but because it was right. Ethan had nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Ryan had ruffled his hair and sent him off to school, but the promise stayed with him. It sat in his chest all morning, heavy and insistent, like a stone he could not put down. Now, standing in the kitchen, Ryan heard the door swing open. Jessica came through, her face flushed. She was carrying a tray of dirty plates, but her hands were shaking. She set the tray down too hard, and one of the glasses tipped over, spilling water across the counter. She cursed under her breath and grabbed a towel. Ryan glanced at her but did not say anything. Jessica was always nervous. It was part of who she was. But then he heard another voice. Gerald, the manager, was standing in the doorway, his arms crossed. His voice was low but sharp, the kind of tone that was meant to cut without being loud. He was talking to one of the other servers, a man named Marcus who had worked there longer than anyone. Marcus was shaking his head, his hands up in a defensive gesture. Gerald said something else, and Marcus turned and walked away, his jaw tight. Ryan dried his hands on his apron and stepped closer to the door. He could see through the small window into the dining room. The restaurant was full, every table occupied except one. A woman sat alone by the window, her back straight, her hands folded on the table. No one was near her, no one was moving toward her. And Gerald was standing by the bar, his face hard, watching her like she was a problem he could not solve. Ryan did not know who she was. He did not recognize her face. But he recognized the look. He had seen it before on his son's face that morning. The look of someone being made invisible. He stood there for a long moment, his hand resting on the edge of the sink. He knew the rules. He was not a server. He was not supposed to take tables. If he stepped out there without permission, Gerald would fire him on the spot. And he needed this job. He needed the paycheck. He needed the health insurance that barely covered anything, but was still better than nothing. He needed the stability, however fragile it was. But he also needed to be able to look his son in the eye. Ryan pulled off the stained apron he had been wearing and reached for a clean one hanging on a hook by the door. He tied it around his waist, straightened his name tag, and pushed through the swinging door into the dining room. The noise hit him first. The clinking of silverware, the low murmur of conversation, the soft music playing from hidden speakers. It all felt louder than it should have, like the room was holding its breath. Ryan walked across the floor, his shoes squeaking slightly on the polished wood. He did not look at Gerald. He did not look at the other servers. He kept his eyes on the woman at the table by the window. She did not see him at first. She was looking out at the street, her expression distant, as if she had already decided this place was not worth her time. Ryan stopped beside her table and picked up the menu that had been left there, untouched. He set it down in front of her, the movement slow and deliberate. Claire turned her head. Her eyes met his, sharp and cold, the kind of gaze that could strip a person down to nothing. Ryan did not flinch. He did not smile. He just stood there, waiting. He spoke clearly, his voice steady. He apologized for keeping her waiting. He told her he would be taking care of her tonight. His tone was not apologetic in the way people were apologetic to her. It was not groveling. It was not afraid. It was simply factual, as if this were the most normal thing in the world. Claire said nothing. She studied him, her eyes moving from his worn uniform to his scuffed shoes to his calloused hands. She was used to people who bent, people who smiled too much, people who said yes before she even asked the question. This man did none of those things. He just stood there, waiting for her to speak, as if they were equals. It irritated her. She leaned back in her chair and asked if he knew who she was. Her voice was quiet, but there was weight behind it, the kind of weight that came from years of making people remember her name. Ryan looked at her for a moment, then nodded slightly. He said he knew she was a customer, and that was all he needed to know. The restaurant went silent. Claire did not respond right away. She let the silence stretch between them, watching him the way a predator watches something that has not yet decided to run. Most people filled silences when she left them. They stumbled over words, offered explanations, tried to recover lost ground. This man did neither. He simply stood there, his hands at his sides, waiting for her to decide what came next. She picked up the menu and glanced at it without really reading. She told him she wanted the table by the far wall instead. Her voice was flat, as if moving halfway across a dining room was the most reasonable request in the world. Ryan nodded once and stepped aside. Claire stood smoothing the front of her jacket and walked to the table she had pointed out. Ryan followed, pulling out her chair without fanfare, then placing the menu down in front of her again. He asked if she would like water while she decided. She said yes. He left. When he returned with the water, she had already decided on something else. She told him she wanted the salmon, but not the one on the menu. She wanted it prepared differently, with no sauce, no garnish, and cooked at a specific temperature that was not listed anywhere. Ryan wrote it down on his pad without comment. He asked if there was anything else. She said she would let him know. He left again. The other servers were watching now. Jessica stood by the bar, pretending to organize napkins, but her eyes kept darting toward Claire's table. Marcus was refilling salt shakers at a station near the kitchen, but he had been working on the same shaker for 3 minutes. Even Gerald had stopped moving. He stood near the entrance, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Claire tested Ryan twice more. She sent back her water because it was not cold enough. She asked for bread, then sent it back because it was too warm. Each time Ryan returned with exactly what she asked for, his expression neutral, his movements efficient. He did not apologize excessively. He did not try to charm her. He simply fixed the problem and moved on. It was unnerving. She was used to people breaking. She was used to watching them crack under pressure, watching them scramble to please her, watching them fail. But Ryan did not break. He did not scramble. He just worked. And the more she pushed, the more she realized he was not intimidated by her. He was not impressed by her. He was just doing his job, the same way he would for anyone else. It made her angrier than she expected. When he brought her the salmon, cooked exactly as she had requested, she looked up at him and asked the question she had been holding since he first approached her table. She asked him if he understood what happened to people who crossed her. Her tone was quiet, almost conversational, but there was steel underneath. Ryan set the plate down carefully, then straightened and met her gaze. He told her he imagined they probably regretted it. His voice was calm, matter-of-fact, as if they were discussing the weather. Then he added that he was not trying to cross her. He was just trying to serve her dinner. Claire stared at him. For the first time in years, she did not have a response ready. Ryan asked if there was anything else she needed. When she did not answer, he turned and walked back toward the kitchen. Claire watched him go, her hands resting on either side of her plate. The salmon sat in front of her, perfectly prepared, but she did not touch it. She was thinking about something else now. She was thinking about the fact that this man, this nobody in a worn uniform, had just treated her like she was ordinary. 10 minutes later, Gerald appeared at her table. He did not sit. He stood at a respectful distance, his hands clasped in front of him, his expression carefully neutral. He asked if everything was satisfactory. His voice was tight, like he was walking a tightrope and could not afford to fall. Claire looked up at him and asked who the man serving her was. Gerald's face flickered with something close to panic. He told her the man's name was Ryan, that he was not usually a server, that he worked in the back and should not have taken it upon himself to approach her table. He apologized, said it would not happen again, said he would handle it personally. Claire cut him off. She asked if Ryan was going to be reprimanded. Gerald hesitated, then nodded. He said the situation would be addressed. Claire told him to leave it alone. Gerald blinked, clearly confused. She repeated herself, her voice sharper this time. She said Ryan had done nothing wrong and there was no need to address anything. Gerald opened his mouth, then closed it. He nodded stiffly and walked away. But Claire could see it in his posture. He was not going to leave it alone. He was going to do exactly what he had planned to do, because men like Gerald always did. She went back to her meal, but the taste had gone out of it. She ate mechanically, her mind elsewhere. She was thinking about the look on Ryan's face when he told her he was not trying to cross her. She was thinking about the way he had stood there, not afraid, not defiant, just steady. It reminded her of something. Someone. A version of herself she had buried a long time ago. 20 minutes later, Ryan returned to clear her plate. She had barely touched the salmon. He asked if there was a problem with the food. She said no, it was fine. She just was not as hungry as she thought. Ryan nodded and picked up the plate. As he turned to leave, Claire spoke again. She asked him why he had served her when no one else would. Ryan stopped. He looked at her, and for the first time, something shifted in his expression. It was not quite a smile. It was not quite sadness. It was something in between. He told her that earlier that morning, his son had asked him why people ignored him at school. He said he had told his son that being ignored did not mean you did not matter. It meant the people ignoring you were too afraid to see you. And he had promised his son that if he ever found himself in that situation, he would not stay quiet. Claire felt something cold settle in her chest. She asked how old his son was. Ryan said 8. She nodded slowly, her eyes dropping to the table. She did not say anything else, and Ryan took that as his cue to leave. But as he walked away, she found herself thinking about a little boy sitting in a classroom, his hand raised, being ignored. She finished her wine in silence. The restaurant had returned to its normal rhythm, the other diners lost in their own worlds, oblivious to the small war that had just played out in their midst. Claire sat alone, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass, her mind turning over the conversation she had just had. She could not remember the last time someone had spoken to her like that, like she was just another person, like her money and her power and her reputation did not matter. It should have made her furious. Instead, it made her feel something she had not felt in years. It made her feel seen. But the peace did not last. Gerald reappeared, his face tight with barely concealed anger. He was not alone. Ryan was behind him, his apron already untied, his expression carefully blank. Gerald stopped a few feet from Claire's table and turned to Ryan. His voice was low but loud enough for her to hear. He told Ryan that he was suspended effective immediately. He said that taking a table without permission was a violation of policy and that there would be consequences. Ryan did not argue. He did not defend himself. He just nodded once and started to turn away. But Claire stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor, the sound cutting through the quiet murmur of the restaurant. Gerald froze. Ryan stopped. Every head in the room turned toward her. Claire's voice was ice. She asked Gerald what he thought he was doing. Gerald stammered something about policy, about maintaining standards, about ensuring the integrity of the establishment. Claire cut him off. She told him that Ryan had done his job better than anyone else in this restaurant. She told him that if Senan should be suspended, it was the manager who had allowed a paying customer to sit unserved for 15 minutes. Gerald's face went white. He started to speak, but Claire was not finished. She told him that she had eaten at establishments all over the world, that she knew exactly what good service looked like, and that what she had received tonight was the first honest interaction she had had in years. She said if he punished Ryan for that, she would make sure everyone in this city knew what kind of place this was. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Gerald looked like he might be sick. He glanced at Ryan, then back at Claire, clearly trying to calculate which outcome would cost him more. Claire did not wait for him to decide. She turned to Ryan and asked him to stay. She said she was not finished with her meal and she wanted him to continue serving her. Ryan looked at Gerald. Gerald looked at the floor. Then slowly, Gerald nodded. He told Ryan to finish the shift. His voice was hollow, defeated. Ryan retied his apron without a word. Gerald walked away, his shoulders slumped, his authority shattered. The restaurant went back to pretending nothing had happened. But Ryan did not move. He stood there, looking at Claire with an expression she could not quite read. It was not gratitude. It was not relief. It was something harder to name. He told her she did not have to do that. Claire sat back down and picked up her wine glass. She said she knew. She said she did it anyway. Ryan studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. He asked if she wanted dessert. She said no. She said she wanted the check. He brought it without comment, placed it on the table and stepped back. Claire opened her wallet and pulled out a credit card, but she did not hand it to him right away. Instead, she looked up and asked him another question. She asked him what he had meant when he said his son would know he was not a coward. Ryan's jaw tightened. He looked away toward the kitchen, then back at her. He told her that his son had been invisible most of his life. Teachers who did not call on him. Kids who did not see him. A world that made him feel like he did not matter. And Ryan had realized that if he let himself be invisible too, if he stayed quiet when things were wrong, then he was teaching his son that being ignored was normal, that it was acceptable, that it was just the way things were. He said he could not do that. He said he would rather lose his job than teach his son to disappear. Claire set her credit card down on the table. She did not look at it. She looked at Ryan, really looked at him, and for the first time in a very long time, she saw herself. Not the version of herself that sat in boardrooms and made decisions that moved markets, but the version from 20 years ago, the one who had worked in a restaurant just like this one, the one who had been yelled at by a manager for serving someone she was not supposed to serve, the one who had stayed quiet because she needed the job, the one who had hated herself for it. She told Ryan to take the night off. She said she would handle the check herself. Ryan frowned, confused. She repeated herself, her voice firm. She said he had done enough, and he should go home to his son. Ryan opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. He looked at her, and something passed between them. An understanding, a recognition. He nodded once, untied his apron for the second time that night, and walked toward the back. Claire watched him go. Then she stood, placed $300 in cash on the table, and walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Claire sat in her car for 20 minutes before she started the engine. The restaurant glowed behind her, warm light spilling onto the street, but she did not look back. Her hands rested on the steering wheel, her knuckles white. She was thinking about the look on Ryan's face when he had walked away. Not defeated, not broken, just tired. The kind of tired that came from carrying weight no one else could see. She knew that feeling. She had carried it for years. The weight of clawing her way up from nothing, of proving herself in rooms full of men who saw her as decoration, of making decisions that gutted companies and ruined lives, because that was what survival looked like at the top. She had told herself it was worth it, that the fear she inspired was just another form of respect, that being alone was the price of being untouchable. But tonight, sitting in her car outside a restaurant where she had been ignored, then served by a man who refused to be afraid of her, she realized something. She was not untouchable. She was just alone. And there was a difference. She drove home in silence. Her penthouse overlooked the city. Glass walls and sharp edges, everything expensive and nothing warm. She poured herself a drink she did not want and stood at the window, looking out at the lights below. Somewhere down there, Ryan was probably home by now, probably tucking his son into bed, probably telling him about his day. She wondered what he would say. She wondered if he would tell Ethan that he had kept his promise. The thought sat in her chest like a stone. She went to bed but did not sleep. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over, the way Ryan had looked at her when she asked why he served her, the way he had said his son's name, the way he had walked away without asking for anything in return. She had spent her entire life around people who wanted something. Money, access, favor, power. Ryan had wanted none of it. He had just wanted to do the right thing. It made her feel small. The next morning, Claire cancelled her first 3 meetings. She told her assistant she needed the morning to herself, which was unusual enough that the woman did not ask questions. Claire sat at her desk, her laptop open but untouched, and thought about what she was going to do. She could let it go. Pretend the night had never happened. Move on. That was what she had always done. But this time, something stopped her. She picked up her phone and called the restaurant. Gerald answered on the 3rd ring, his voice immediately shifting into something obsequious when he realized who was calling. Claire did not let him finish his greeting. She told him she wanted Ryan's information. Gerald went quiet. Then he asked why. Claire said it was none of his business. Gerald stammered something about privacy policies. Claire reminded him that she had eaten at his restaurant the night before and had been ignored for 15 minutes. She said she was sure the owners would be very interested in hearing about that. Gerald gave her the information. Claire hung up and stared at the address she had written down. It was in a part of the city she never went to. Small apartments, old buildings, the kind of neighborhood where people worked 2 jobs and still could not get ahead. She thought about calling, decided against it. If she called, he would have time to prepare, time to put up walls. She did not want walls. She wanted the truth. She drove there that afternoon. The building was exactly what she expected. Cracked paint, narrow hallways, a front door that did not quite close all the way. She climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and found the apartment number Gerald had given her. She knocked twice. There was a long silence. Then footsteps. The door opened. Ryan stood there in a t-shirt and jeans, his hair still damp from a shower. He looked surprised, then wary. He did not invite her in. He just stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame, blocking her view of the apartment behind him. Claire said she wanted to talk. Ryan asked how she had found him. Claire said it did not matter. Ryan's jaw tightened. He told her he had work in 2 hours and needed to get ready. Claire said this would not take long. She said she owed him an apology. Ryan frowned. He told her she did not owe him anything. She said she did. She said she had spent years building a reputation that made people afraid of her, and she had convinced herself that was power. But watching him last night, watching him risk his job for a stranger, she realized she had been wrong. Power was not making people fear you. Power was making them want to be better because of you. Ryan did not say anything. He just looked at her, his expression unreadable. Claire reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. She held it out to him. Ryan did not take it. He asked what it was. Claire said it was enough money to cover a year of tuition at a private school. She said his son deserved to be seen. Ryan's face went hard. He told her he did not need her charity. Claire said it was not charity. It was a thank you. She said he had reminded her of something she had forgotten. That doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing. That being honest was harder than being powerful. That sometimes the person with the least to give had the most to teach. Ryan looked at the envelope, then at her. He told her he could not accept it. Claire said she would leave it with the building manager then. She said he could do whatever he wanted with it. She turned to leave. Ryan called after her. She stopped. He asked why she really came. Claire looked back at him, and for the first time she let her guard down. She told him that 20 years ago she had been a server at a restaurant just like the one he worked at. She had been told not to serve a certain customer because the customer was difficult. She had obeyed. She had stayed quiet, and she had hated herself for it ever since. She said watching him last night had reminded her of who she used to be before she stopped caring about things like that. Before she decided that survival meant shutting down everything soft. She said she did not know if she could go back to being that person. But she wanted to try. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. Then he took the envelope. He did not open it. He just held it, his fingers tight around the paper. He told her his son would appreciate it. Claire nodded. She said she hoped so. Then she left. 1 week later, Claire sat in a conference room with her senior staff. They were discussing layoffs. The CFO was presenting a plan to cut 20% of the workforce in their support division. He said it would save millions. He said it was the smart move. He said the board would approve it without question. Everyone around the table nodded. It was the kind of decision Claire had made 100 times before. But this time, she said no. The room went silent. The CFO blinked at her. He asked if she had heard the numbers. Claire said she had. She said she also heard that the people they were talking about cutting were the ones who kept the company running while everyone else took credit. She said they were not numbers. They were people. And she was not going to destroy lives just to make a quarterly report look better. The CFO started to argue. Claire cut him off. She told him to cut the marketing budget instead. She said they could survive with fewer ads. They could not survive without the people who did the actual work. The room stayed silent. No one argued. No one agreed. They just sat there, stunned, trying to figure out what had changed. Claire did not explain. She just dismissed the meeting and went back to her office. She sat at her desk and looked out the window. Somewhere across the city, Ryan was probably at work, probably scrubbing dishes, probably thinking about picking up his son from school, probably doing all the small, invisible things that kept his life together. And for the first time in years, Claire felt like she understood what that meant. Ryan came home that night to find Ethan waiting for him at the kitchen table, a piece of paper in his hands. Ethan looked up, his face bright. He said his teacher had called on him 3 times today. He said she told him his answer was really good. He said he felt like people finally saw him. Ryan set his bag down and pulled his son into a hug. He told him he was proud. Ethan asked why. Ryan said because he had not given up, because he had kept raising his hand even when no one called on him. Ethan pulled back and looked at his father. He asked if Ryan had ever done something like that. Ryan thought about the restaurant, about Claire, about the decision he had made to step out from the kitchen and do what no one else would. He told his son yes. He said he had. Ethan smiled. He said he wanted to be like that when he grew up. Ryan told him he already was. Later that night, after Ethan was asleep, Ryan sat alone in the dark. He thought about the envelope Claire had given him, about the money inside, about the choice he had made to accept it. He thought about the look on her face when she told him she wanted to try to be better. He did not know if she would succeed. He did not know if people like her could really change. But he knew she had tried, and that was more than most people ever did. He thought about his son, asleep in the next room, and the promise he had made that morning a week ago. He had kept it, and in keeping it, he had taught Ethan something no amount of money could buy. He had taught him that sometimes one person standing up was all it took to make everyone else stop and listen. And maybe that was enough.